I love Korean movies. In fact, I've gone so far as to say that there's never been a bad Korean movie. At least, not one that I've seen. Granted, I have only seen a few Korean movies, but you know, more than the average American. And you know, I really believed that there was no such thing as a bad Korean movie, which, you know, is probably not true. There are a lot of Korean movies out there, and that's just not likely to be the case. But I have found the one Korean movie, well, probably not the one, but probably the worst Korean movie I've ever seen so far. A little movie called Death Bell. Now, I'm gonna be honest, Death Bell isn't even that bad. My theory still holds up. This one has a 2.6 average rating on Letterboxd, which is a website I find trustworthy most of the time. And you know, 2.6 isn't like that bad. It's kind of like middle of the road, not good, but not terrible. So this is more like dipping my toe into bad Korean movies. So, with that being said, let's get into Death Bell, starring Drake Bell. It doesn't star Drake Bell. I wonder if anything will star Drake Bell. No, he quit acting, right? Whatever happened to that guy?
Guilty.
Also, I'm going to try my hardest not to reference any of these movies / shows right here. I'm really gonna try. It's gonna be hard.
A few moments later.
So the movie has started, and we're already being attacked by the Ring Girl and a bunch of zombies. Did I accidentally start up Train to Busan? No. Okay, good. We're watching Death Bell, not Train to Busan. Okay, no. She was just on her period. It's alright. False alarm. We're good. So the first few minutes of this film basically builds up all of the characters that we're going to be seeing, obviously, throughout the rest of the film. And it shows everyone, you know, getting ready for the final day of final exams. And, you know, everyone's nervous, everyone's getting prepped. However, I'm getting a little nervous myself because the editing so far is kind of all over the place. In the first, like, 10 minutes, you go through, like, 20 scenes. Each scene is, like, not even a minute long, and you're gonna see pretty soon that it's like this throughout the entire movie. Kind of, it's very quickly edited. Like, you go from one scene, boom, next scene, next scene, next scene. So it's a little disorienting at first because so much is being thrown at you and you don't really know, you know, what's important. So yeah, so far editing not too impressive.
뭐야 새끼야?
Straight from that scene we get to the next scene, which has a really well-dressed guy who I think later we find out is like the principal or something, and he's like digging through the bush or doing something with the bush, and then this kid from, there's like a wall behind the bush, and he comes from behind the wall, throws his bag, the bag lands perfectly on the guy, and you know, there's just like this awkward moment where the kid's like, oh, sorry about that, and takes his bag away. It's a very weird moment. I suppose it's supposed to highlight the mischievous character of the kid who plays a bigger role later in the movie. As for the digging around the bush, no clue what that's about. I thought that was going to come in later, but it never did. Just him picking out a bush. That's all it is. So as the testing starts, one of the kids sees a face on his paper and understandably is a bit freaked out. And later on, he even starts having these hallucinations in the hallway and freaks out and tries to strangle the girl who we saw at the beginning with the period. He tries to strangle her for seemingly no reason, but during the testing, the intercom turns on and this really weird song starts playing about how the school sucks and exams suck. Hey, preach, brother. Preach. So of course the teachers immediately look at the troublemaker kid who was the one who threw the bag earlier, and you know, he denies it, but it was him. He was just trying to get some girls. Is that a Chad move? I don't know, you decide. He takes the two girls that we saw in the beginning out clubbing. So the next day is what is called the special class, which the movie has been building up quite a lot in the beginning parts. So what is this special class, you may ask? Ah, right. Well, I don't really understand how the Korean education system works, and I'm not going to tell you. Google it. But apparently this special class thing is basically top students from another sister school, they call it, comes over to the school that the story takes place, and I guess the top students who are in what's called the elite class take a test together or something. I don't know. In truth, I don't think it really matters because this kid gets pulled into a toilet. Nah, I'm just kidding. He gets pulled into the ceiling above the toilet. Getting pulled into the toilet would be a tad too ridiculous, don't you think? It's shortly after this point, though, that the premise of the movie really starts to kick in. When the class is in the middle of an English exam, the TV switches channels and starts to show a live feed of one of their missing classmates inside a box that is slowly filling with water. And meanwhile, a voice on the TV talks about how the last exam is happening, telling everyone that nobody should leave or contact the police or anything like that, and it turns out that they can't even do that last part because the phone lines are cut down and the internet is turned off. So, I know what you're thinking though. They have feet. They can walk out. True. That is a fact. But this happens. So that kind of just turns them off from going outside. So after the girl is drowned in the box and dead, the exam starts with the first question, and they got another kid who is being tortured by having hot candle wax dripped onto him, which actually is a pretty gnarly torture method. Sounds tame on paper, but I think it'd be pretty awful. So as that's happening, they have to figure out a phrase in the auditorium with a bunch of papers with characters laid out on the floor. A phrase about his mother's greed, which is apparently the reason he got that. Uh-oh. A serial killer who kills based off of the 7 deadly sins? Nope. Nope, not gonna reference it. Not gonna reference it. I'm not referencing it. I'm just saying that is what's happening here in this scene. I'm not referencing what you think I'm referencing. You're doing that. That's in your brain, okay? Anyway, they figure out the answer to the question by reciting some Lao Tzu, who, if you don't know, is an ancient Chinese philosopher.
You tell your dad that Lao Tzu said, "The wise stay behind and go ahead. They want nothing and have everything."
Yeah. Huh?
I don't know if they got like Will from Good Will Hunting on their side or something. If this were America, we'd be done on question 1. How many high school students, and even teachers, how many high school students and teachers even know who Lao Tzu is? Even though they get the question right, the student still dies, and his bloody, candle wax-laden body falls from the ceiling of the auditorium. So yeah, pretty gross. Speaking of gross, she just beat herself. Right, guys? Why is everyone screaming? And it's after this point that they figure out that the killings are happening in order of their placement in the final exam. So essentially, the smartest of the students are the ones dying first. And speaking of smart, they do what is probably the smartest thing you could do in a horror movie, and that is split up. So there are 2 teachers left overseeing all of the students, as well as 1 security guy who's just kind of there. Both of the teachers take 2 different groups, one of them to go search for the other group who went off saying they were going to the bathroom, but in reality they were going to the dorm rooms to hide out there because they think it's safe. The other group goes to find the next question so as to get the exam done, I guess. I don't know. Just stop splitting up. Stay together. Now the group hiding in the dorm rooms happens to have one of the next victims, Myung-heo. I don't know if that's right, but apologies if I'm saying any of these names wrong. But anyway, this girl, Myung-heo, who is the friend of Ina, who is the girl we saw in the beginning, she is in that dorm room with a group of other kids. But of course, since they have, the next person on their list, their door is getting bashed in, the Shining style. And that's when the group who is looking for them comes in, and the lights are flickering, and it's absolute chaos. Everyone's screaming, running around. And it's at this point in the movie where I can see that it's taking a little more of a paranormal twist, which is kind of obvious if you look at the scenes before that. But it's at this point where it's like, okay, it's probably a ghost doing all of this, which, you know, I was like, that's a little disappointing. In general, I just don't care for paranormal stuff, but you know, it seems less cool than, you know, someone, a human making these kids do this sick exam or whatever. But you know, we'll see how it turns out. So now those two groups are reunited, and the other group is in another room trying to figure out the second question, which is that they have to decipher what these numbers that are carved onto the next student's skin, they have to figure out what the numbers mean. So, you know, they solve it. That's another thing. There's nothing really clever about the questions or the answers to that questions, or like how they get to the answers of the questions. There's nothing ever clever about it. They're just kind of like,
Processing information.
So yeah, I'm not impressed. Although, if this were real life, I would be. Admittedly, I would be very impressed if a bunch of students just like thought for like 5 minutes and knew the answers to these questions. That would be impressive. So when the three groups finally reunite and are back together again, and they're eating, I guess you could call that dinner, Ina, who is, I guess, sort of the main character, at least of the students, hears the answer to the second question, and her memories start coming back to her, who appeared to be a really smart student, got good grades and everything, and then for whatever reason she kind of fell off, plus ratio. But apparently shortly after, she dies mysteriously, and it's not exactly clear if this is a suicide or a murder, but we'll find out soon enough. So the takeaway is that her ghost is the one causing all of this ruckus, which checks out given this, you know, it seems fair to say that in this situation, it could be a ghost. Little lame, but a fair assumption. But you know, one of the teachers, Mr. Wang, he's not buying it, so he goes off in search of whoever is doing this, armed with a giant wrench, while the others are staying to answer the question. And the answer to this question heavily implies that it is indeed at least about the dead girl exacting her revenge on who exactly? I don't know. Society? And a little later on, Mr. Wang and the other three main characters, I guess you'd call them, stumble upon the kid from the beginning, the one with the hallucinations and all that, and tried to strangle Ina. Well, he's still at it. Goes to attack Ina again, but Hyun, who is the guy from the beginning, who is sort of the mischievous guy, you know, he jumps in front of her and saves her, but he gets stabbed to death in the process. So, boom, 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 bam. And just before the kid is about to kill Ina, Mr. Wang comes in the clutch, starts beating him with a rock.
That's good. Okay, that's good. Yeah, that's... Alright, that's good. Okay. Alright, okay, alright. Okay, that's good. That's good. It's enough slices!
So our gang of what is now three main characters finds the basement of operations where they see Ina's friend hanging from the ceiling, to which she is then dropped and dies at the hands of the ghost girl, who at this point they all kind of believe in, I guess. Mr. Wang, however, is still just as determined to catch this ghost girl, or whoever it is, and goes up and gets in a little scuffle with the ghost girl, which I didn't really know was possible. And he almost dies in the process. Luckily though, he grabs a rope and strangles her. Let's go! Let's go! They don't call him the Overkiller for nothing. So, after that, that's it. The killings are over. All done. All ended. I suppose, what is a few days after the events, a memorial service is held for all the students who died. However, right when I think I'm out, they pull me back in. And Ina gets kidnapped and a voice comes onto the intercom during the memorial service and reveals the truth about everything. It turns out that this voice is Mr. Kim, who, if you don't remember, is the security guard from earlier. I know I've barely talked about him, but that's because he didn't do anything. He was too busy killing kids. But this Mr. Kim is the father of the dead girl, and it turns out that yes, she was indeed murdered. By who? Well, he is called the Overkiller. I mean, I'm the one who gave him that name, but you know, it's true. He overkills. So yeah, our good friend Mr. Wang, the hero teacher, is a murderer, and Mr. Kim over the intercom basically forces Mr. Wang to confess to his murder, and if he doesn't, then everyone in the room will die to a gas that is slowly being leaked into the room. So why did Mr. Wang do this? Well, as it turns out, Mr. Wang was accepting bribes from a multitude of parents who wanted to get their kid into the elite class, which obviously by its name is just, you know, I'm elite, I'm smart, I know Lao Tzu, I know equations. You know, obviously with all these kids coming into the elite class who have no business being there, this results in Ji-yeon, who is the dead girl, to basically confront Mr. Wang and, you know, tell him, hey, I'm going to the school board. And Mr. Wang's like, no, you're not. You know why? You won't be alive to tell the school board. And she wasn't. She died pretty quickly. Luckily, though, she was able to record with her phone just before she gets strangled. She was able to record with her phone the murder taking place. So, you know, after Ji-yeon is dead, of course, the parents, you know, grieving parents, basically their life gets just torn apart. And, you know, you got your loan sharks, which are never a good thing. PSA, don't do that.
Stop it.
But yeah, you know, their life is falling apart, and you know, they kind of know who did it. So he gets a job as a security guard, an unassuming security guard, and the rest is history. Oh, and also the crazy kid, you know, the one who tried strangling Ina, he actually witnessed the murder taking place. Why he didn't say anything? No clue. Could have at least called the police. I know he's probably very distraught seeing what he saw. Fair enough. Could have called the police. Just saying. That's my opinion. Not really opinion though, kind of a fact. So yeah, the whole situation was just the dead girl's parents exacting their revenge on Mr. Wang and the parents who bribed him to get their kids into the elite class. Yeah, the movie ends with Mr. Kim coming in with an axe and killing Mr. Wang, finally getting his full revenge, and Ina is rescued by the other teacher who is present during the events. And yeah, that's it. That's the end. So what do I think? What do I think of this? Honestly, it's not that bad. I mean, obviously, I'm not a huge fan of the editing. It's just too much sometimes. I mean, sometimes it's kind of cool and kind of like quirky, I guess. But for the most part, it's just kind of annoying. Other than that, it's overall just kind of mediocre. Still though, it's got that, it has that little, it's very small, but it's got that little Korean pizzazz. Just wasn't in there as much as, you know, Parasite, Memories of Murder, The Host, any of Bong Joon-ho movies, Old Boy, you know, all of the classic Korean movies. You know, not as much in this movie as those, for sure, but it's still got that. Basically, I've just proven my point that there does not exist a bad Korean movie, okay? If you have one, let me know in the comments, because I'd love to see this unicorn of bad Korean movies. Come on, please. But yeah, anyway, thank you so much for watching this. But seriously, if you do have any movies that you'd like to see me do a video about, drop it in the comments. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. That would be it for me.